Okay, hello. Welcome to the OpenActive W3C community group call for Wednesday, 10th of November, 2021. Topic for the call is kind of a fact-finding mission, really. It's about requirements for access passes, things like barcodes and QR codes and so on and so forth. So it's really very much about getting what the requirements are for leisure operators and councils. We'll start off with a round of introductions in the order that people appear on my screen arbitrarily. Can you kick us off, Stephen?
Yep. Good afternoon, all. Stephen Minifield from GLL. Hopefully you can hear me. So I think I've met or spoken to most people on this call today, but Digital Services Manager with GLL. Also part of the Interoperability Manchester project team as well.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Nathan.
Hi, my name's Nathan Salter. I'm the lead developer at Playfinder/BookTech.
Thank you, Nathan. Andrew Marshall.
Andrew Marshall, Principal Architect at Gladstone.
Thank you, Andrew. Rob.
I'm Rob Bedbath. I'm part of Open Data Services Corp, doing some work on OpenActive's governance and future sustainability.
Debbie.
Debbie Giordano, everyone active, just part of the IT department.
Thanks, Debbie. Nish.
Hi everyone, Nish Desai here from I'm working with Stephen and some others here on various projects like MCR. I've spoken to Manchester and Westminster before this call, who are both very keen to join these calls, but are unable to make this call today at least. So I've asked if I can help represent their requirements and help clarify things that come up during these calls.
Okay, thanks a lot, Nish. And finally, Andy Gordon.
Hi, Andy Gordon from Gladstone, Senior Product Owner here within the R&D team.
Okay, fantastic. I'll share my screen. That said, this is going to be a fairly simple call. Oh, sorry, do we have another entrant? Oh, hello, Nick. Hi. Could you just introduce yourself for the sake of the recording?
Oh, hello. Sorry. Yes, Nick Evans. I'm in.
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, as I was saying, I think this is going to be a fairly simple call in a way, in that it's kind of a fact-finding and requirements call, simply because in the last technical working group, we started talking a little bit about what we should call access passes like barcodes and QR codes, with the intention that this was really sort of a naming question. But it did come out really that we weren't entirely clear what requirements we were trying to satisfy with the proposal itself. So this is really just a conversation, I think, for stakeholders and people close to current projects, both for what they're trying to implement and I suppose what the longer term horizon looks like for access passes, so that we know what we need to support in terms of both some legacy and going forward. I'm actually just going to point first of all at Stephen, because I know he needs to be off fairly soon. So Stephen, would it be possible for you to just summarize where your concerns are around access passes?
I think from an operator perspective, we have always had one major concern, and that is that whatever access pass type is used, it's got to be secure. Mm-hmm. It's secure as in not allowing it to be cloned, duplicated, passed around. And we've had facial recognition as an access method in the past, and we've just moved across to a new solution. So barcodes and QR codes are fine and have their place, but they're not necessarily the most secure way of giving an individual paying user access to a building, because it can be shared.
Okay, so sorry, just to back up, because actually my mind is boggled. So you've already had a facial recognition system in place and it was functioning, and now you're re-implementing?
Yeah, we've recently introduced Smart Tile based on the user's ID that comes from their mobile phone, which can't be cloned, can't be passed around. So it provides a more secure solution. But there's
Okay.
still a place for barcodes and QR codes because not everybody has a smartphone.
Mhm. Okay, right. But within the smartphone universe, facial recognition is a current reality.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
is that smart tile? Is that facial recognition or NFC off the phone? Sorry.
It's smart tile, so it just reads the QR code on the access point using the
it's not-
QR code reader or NFC either.
So it's not facial recognition, or it is.
No, we've got facial recognition. That's completely separate. Sorry, Nick, I may have confused you all with that. We've had a facial recognition installed in some locations, and now we're uninstalling it and putting in smart tile.
Oh, so there's no long. So the facial recognition pilot didn't work almost. Was that
No, it did work. It worked very well. It just became expensive. So we found a cheaper alternative that's equally as effective.
Okay, but in the medium term, I suppose facial recognition, yeah, seems feasible. It's already possible, and if the cost.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, interesting. Thank you for that. Okay, so security as the main concern, and a variety of solutions for that. So not excluding barcodes and QR codes, but certainly not limited to those.
Yeah, correct.
Sorry, Stephen, just so I understand, I'm picking up on something Debbie said in the last call. Are those tiles? Are those NFC? I guess is that programmed per ticket, if you like, or is it for a member as a kind of replacement for membership?
No, they're just the smart tile are basically the barcode readers, but in a different form, because they don't allow anything. All they're doing is recognizing a trigger, which is the ID from the phone, using that information and sending it to the operating system. In this instance, it's Flow, not Legend, and they then do all the work to interpret what that means and what access the user gets.
So the tile is given to the user not as a ticket, but as a kind of member, if you like.
No, the tile sits on the access point, so it's a permanent feature. All the tile does is identify the location.
Oh, sorry, but the NFC, the app on the phone that is recognized by the tile.
Yes.
Is that per ticket or is that for a member?
Per ticket.
Ah, right. Okay. So there's a ticket code or something that gets given to the phone and the tile reads it.
No, so that the code sits in the application. So that basically what the tile does is say to Flow, I've got this user here, this user identifier number, and do you recognize this person? The application says, yes, I recognize this person. This is Stephen. He's got a booking for today. Let him in.
Okay, so it resolves right down to the level of the session then.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's recognizing Stephen rather than a person that has a rather than a ticket. I guess I was saying when I said ticket, I meant kind of let's say that I book a squash court for 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Is that code that I have in the phone that's then recognized and looked up by the application specific to the 5 o'clock booking, or is it specific to me personally? And it's only because I've turned up at 5 that it's letting me in.
Correct. It's the latter. Yeah. The fact you've turned up at 5 o'clock and it's letting you in.
Because it knows that I'm Nick and I've got a booking.
Correct. Yes.
Right. So if I showed up 24 hours early, it would not let me in.
No.
Okay. Right.
As most systems do now, as our current system does.
Sure,
but you in a day early.
And I suppose the key thing there is that it's not that is a ticket. That's not a ticket number as much as it is a person identifier. So it's.
Yeah, I guess it is. It's a person identifier, but the person who's been identified has an access token to be allowed in because they've got an activity that's live or valid in the next X period of time.
Oh, I see. Sorry. So I keep asking the same question in different ways. So is the access token what they're using, or is it the person identifier?
Well, the trigger is the person identifier.
Yeah.
That's the start point. Okay. Once the person is identified, the person has got something from the application that says let them in. So the smart tile doesn't do any work. All it does is just say, look, I've got this person. What do you want me to do?
It's just checking for flags. Has this person got a booking within a given duration?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that simplify it, Nick?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I guess, as Andy, are you about to say that's what Gladstone does as well?
Yeah.
If someone is identified in the database, yes.
Exactly what Legend does now as well.
Yeah.
So this might be a
So
good
what
point
will-
to ask Debbie. Oh, there we go, Debbie.
So what will happen in the case of a guest booking?
Yeah, that's where the system starts to fall down. That's why we've still got barcode readers and smart tiles.
Then we'd still need those sort of barcode readers for the guest bookings that are done through OpenActive.
Yeah.
Yep.
But guest bookings tend to be less risky as in income protection
prepaid.
risky. Yeah, because they're generally prepaid. Whereas you've got a prepaid customer's entitled to go in. What you don't want to do is them to share their card with anybody else, and that's what this process eliminates.
Okay.
Provided you take the barcode away from them, which you haven't done that yet.
Well, presumably that if they're a guest, the barcode can only be used once. Is that?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so a guest access token is only usable once.
Sure. So the security is built into that in a different way.
I mean, that's not the case from a Gladstone perspective. It'd be based on that barcode having an associated booking.
Correct.
Within the period.
Yeah, that's right. So they'll have what we call cut-off periods, so many minutes before and so many minutes afterwards.
Yeah.
Of that activity, and it's probably similar with Legend as well. I would think
It is actually. Yeah, he's correct, Andy. Yeah.
So does that mean, Andy, that there is no one? It's not a one-time use. It's just any time within the window you can use that barcode as an anytime.
Because if you suddenly realise that you've gone into the facility and you've left something behind that you need, you go out, you come back in again, you're active within that duration of when that class can take place. Once you're through the gates, though, once you're through the gates, though, of course, where you actually go from there, it depends then how you police it within the centre. It's on a trust factor that you're going to that particular class or that particular activity. That's how it's policed inside. But that's a side piece. But what we're really saying at the moment is that as long as that barcode is scanned X minutes before, X minutes afterwards, they can get to that turnstile. The question that I've sort of got in the back of my mind with a guest, if you do that, what do we do with regards to, again, Nick, please clarify this for me. If I'm a guest, I don't have to sign up to be registered to get a discounted rate, to be applicable to a discounted rate, whether it be in borough or out of borough. You can claim that as being a guest as well.
In terms of the memberships to stuff, as far as the proposal currently stands, the broker authenticates the level of discount. So if MCR, for example, granted that guest level of discount, then yes, you would be able to get that as a guest. But the broker would need to authenticate that. So it wouldn't be anybody. It wouldn't just be, it wouldn't be a random app that would be able to do that.
No. What I'm saying though is, as a guest, I could go onto the website. I could make that booking as an anonymous person, enter in my name, phone number, email, whichever the case may well be. At the point of, and then select whatever level of pricing I take it is behind that particular booking, because you can't check online that you are relevant to an adult, junior, or whichever. There's got to be a check, I presume, at centre that you are eligible before you go through the gate.
No, so it's not quite. So the this is about data protection and sharing of data, and so if you have an MCR active account, but you don't want to share your data with the centre as a kind of member, if you like, a permanent account in the whatever the way, everyone active site, you might just be making a one-off booking. MCR, you have an account with MCR, but you don't want to, as a user, share your details to create a permanent account with everyone active.
Okay, I think that's the bit we're missing then. So what you're saying is that you still got to be registered with MCR to be, so you still register your details with MCR. It's whether you choose through the booking system, whether you want to go through anonymous or as a main person.
Exactly that, and it's encouraged to go through as you say, main person, a linked account. If you want to have access when you walk into the centre and whatever else. But it might just be for a GDPR opt-out perspective. They don't want to share their.
So is there something in the scheme whereby that if I was registered within Manchester or Westminster, you're not showing my name details, but they'd be obliged for Manchester or Westminster to pass through the discount
So you're sharing first name, surname, phone number, email address, and the discount level for that guest. So as far as a kind of in-center person, if there's any issues in center, obviously you've got that personal information, but that is guest detail. So my understanding is, I mean, it obviously changes within every system, but that's from a GDPR perspective treated as guest information. So, wiped after 30 days or whatever the retention period is.
So the registered person is still, those details are still being passed through, but through a guest booking rather than actually as the formally named person then logging in.
Exactly that. Yeah, that's right.
Fine. Okay, that clarifies that. Okay, thank you.
But just back to your point, Nick, that you made there is to do where you mentioned automatic access through the building. If you're publishing a barcode as part of a confirmation email or to the app or however for that booking, then, well, not via the app because they wouldn't be logged in, but for a guest, if you were to publish the barcode via an email to a guest that's made a booking, that's going to allow them access. You refer to it as a walk-in, but that is going to allow them access in the same way it would a known member with the booking at the same time.
Yes, that's so. Sorry, you're right. The walk-in terminology. Gosh, so much terminology. When we so there's a specific use case which when I say walk-in, I'm probably referring to, but it probably is not very helpful. So I don't know whether to call it something else. But the use case of I think we might have said this over an email exchange separately, Debbie, but to bring it into this forum, the idea that if you're a junior, for example, you've got access to free swimming, and you can use your card or your tile or whatever, your NFC or whatever, and you can just walk into the center and walk through the turnstiles without actually pre-booking. So I don't know is there a term that you would use for that, Debbie or anybody? Explains what that is, so I can call it the right thing.
I guess we have talked about it on email, but the bit I'm struggling in is why we would want to expose that information or why that information is needed in the feed, if I'm honest. And other people may feel differently, but you've got to find a way of understanding that from the software, putting that into the feed and exposing it for some reason to the customer. And it's based on configuration. And what if that configuration, that feed changes, that feed needs to change? And so I'm not sure. I think one of your questions on the email is, do we want to expose it? And I'm not really sure why you need to, if I'm honest.
Yeah, so maybe just backing up a second to get everyone on to what we're talking about with this, specifically related to access codes. Maybe is it the first thing that's worth clarifying, whether or not it's in the feed? Is it the case that we want to allow our juniors that have free access to swimming to walk in through the turnstiles without a prepaid booking? Is that a use case that is something that we want to support? What everyone's understanding of that is. Shall I explain that again, Stephen? I can confuse.
Yeah, no, I'm not confused at all. I understand that completely. I'm just thinking it through because that's exactly what we do with prepaid members who get access to gym, swimming group, and classes. You have to book a class, but you have to book a gym one. You still have to book a swim, but that'll be dropping off at some point in the future. So we allow adults to swipe in and just not tell us what they're doing, but just to go in based on a set of pre-agreed attributes that allow them to swipe in because they could be going to the gym or could be going for a swim. Do we do that for juniors? No. Would we ever like to do that for juniors? I would suggest unlikely because of this duty of care that we have for juniors.
Stephen, what in the Manchester case, unless Nick, sorry, I haven't been on previous course, so apologies if I missed the context here. Recently, we're talking about the junior free swim entitlement, whatever you want to call it, benefit. So if I'm between ages of whatever and in the city and I live in a postcode, then I get the ability to swim for free at half term. And the majority of those individuals don't book online. They turn up to the reception with their membership card and scan in and go in and swim. So is that not quite an important use case for this topic?
No, because that's a misinterpretation of the phrase scan in, because they don't scan at the turnstiles and just walk in. They would queue up at reception if they hadn't got a pre-booking, and then reception would sell them a booking slot, and they were then scanned through the turnstiles to get in.
Okay.
So, whereas an adult a prepaid adult is entitled just to turn up at the turnstiles, swipe in, and go and do whatever they like.
Is that the same with the
I would agree, yeah.
Yeah. Is that same with you, Debbie?
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I think it goes back to that email again, Nick, that it's all down to the configuration and what the operator wants to do and how the operator wants to control it. So I'm really not sure why there's a need to expose that as part of the OpenActive feed. We don't even expose it as part of our own booking solutions, really. We perhaps put something on our member pages to say if you are a member you can swipe in and all of that sort of stuff, but there's nothing as far as the booking journey goes at the moment that says you can swipe in, or the sign up journey that's at the moment that says you can automatically sign in. So I'm swiping, so I'm a bit lost as to why you need it in this feed.
Yeah, so that's a separate, but yeah, definitely worth bringing up there, Debbie. And that's about the feed itself. But before we get back to the feed, just to check the requirement on in terms of walking in. So we're saying you can still. Is there like a 60+ adult that can walk through the turnstiles? I'm just trying to get to the bottom of whether it's possible for someone to make a booking and walk in without going to reception at all, or if
anybody that's got a booking at that time will be able to swipe in through a turnstile without going to reception, as long as it's paid for and you've got no debt and you've got no other infringements on your account that would prevent you from being able to swipe access. If you've got that booking, the system should recognize that you've got that booking and allow you through the turnstiles. This is in our world, and people may be different, but and the only other case where we would allow somebody to swipe without making a booking is the same as Stephen's, and it's the prepaid membership types where they can come and use the gym or swim or classes whenever they want.
Excellent.
So in this scenario of open data, you don't really care about our prepaid membership types. If not dismissively, I don't mean you don't care, but it's not what this is being built for.
Yes, it's not in the feed. So to bring that back to the email, and this was what the last email. I know we keep referring to this email as a specific thing, but the last part of that exchange, I think I'd realised, Debbie, I might have overcomplicated what we were talking about, because to say it in a slightly different way, do we think is it the case that within Everyone Active and within GLL, anything you can book online, you can also just turn up? And I think what Stephen was saying about scan in and inverted commas, you can just walk into the reception, make the booking in reception, and then go and participate in the activity. So it's optional to book online from the perspective that you can go into the centre and make a booking when you get there.
Yeah,
absolutely. If there's space, we're not going to turn you away.
Yeah,
but we can't guarantee there's space, so we will always encourage pre-booking online. But during COVID, you had to. We were saying you had to book online.
Yes,
it was just the situation that we were in. But if somebody turns up to go swimming and there's space, we're not going to turn them away.
Yeah, that's right. So
but they're not going to be able to just let themselves in.
Yes, and that's so therefore within Gladstone at least, and this is that last part of the last email I sent over. I think probably what that means then is there's a flag called Open Booking in Advance, which basically says whether the person has to book online in advance of turning up, or whether they are allowed to walk in, scan in, make the booking when they get there, which is different to turnstile walking through. Absolutely understand that, but it sounds like what the answer is. Actually, by default in Gladstone and Legend, the answer is probably to allow them to. We need to make it clear they can walk in if they want to make the booking on the day. It's not compulsory to book online.
At the risk of there being no space, yes.
Absolutely, yes, yeah, absolutely right. Great.
That's that optional flag you were referring to, Nick. Is that right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
So in that case, I think all of ours would just be optional.
Yep.
Yeah, which is incredibly small change, Andy, in terms of what I was worried it was going to be a whole thing, but that's really straightforward.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, great. So yeah, in which case, oh, sorry, Andy.
No, I was just going to say we've got that captured, so that's fine. That's the clarity we need.
Yeah, well, that's excellent. So it sounds like then what we were talking about in terms of this turnstiles, Debbie, as you rightly say, no one really is fussed about advertising the fact you can just walk in and go through the turnstiles without talking to reception. That's the final point. So in some of these cases, it sounds like you'll be able to make a booking. You'll be able to walk into a centre without even making a booking or talking to reception, and just walk in and scan your card. But we're not. It sounds like there's no interest in really advertising that to anybody as the fact that you can do that. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, I don't think that applies to any of the cases for, if we're talking about Manchester specific discounted members or Westminster discounted members. That's a specific case to our prepaid members. I don't know if Stephen agrees, but they're the only times we would allow people to just come in whenever they want, if they're on a direct debit or an annual membership with us.
So even the 60 plus folks who are adults and might have access to free swimming, for example, would still need to go to reception. They couldn't.
As it stands, yes. Yeah.
Is that the same for you, Stephen?
Yes, with the free swimming element, because unless it's a prepaid 60 plus.
Unless it's prepaid.
Yeah.
You're basically not giving anyone free access to the centre to just walk in unless you've got a direct debit relationship with them.
Or prepaid.
Prepaid. Yes, or prepaid. There's got to be money involved somewhat, basically.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. You can't just saunter in off the street.
There always is. There always is. Yeah, I have to go now, everybody. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Stephen.
Thanks.
Perfect. That's great. Stephen's done very well at articulating that in the short space of time. I think we might have got there then. We got some clarity on what's what now?
Yeah, I think with that particular question about quote unquote walk-ins, I think the broader question of what requirements we need to support, we've sort of detoured from a bit, or rather we've investigated one aspect of it in detail.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Debbie, I'm aware you need to head off pretty soon. Is there anything further you'd like to raise just before you head off?
I'm actually okay for another 8 minutes now. It's been deferred by, my next meeting's been deferred by 10 minutes, so I'm okay for a few, but I haven't got anything at the moment. No, thank you.
Okay, could I just ask Nish to take us through requirements as he understands them of Active Westminster and MCR Active?
Sure. Is this specifically for access passes?
Yeah, sorry, specifically for access passes, barcodes, etc.
So if it's about types of passes, as it stands, we've only really spoken about types of passes that can be rendered on a website or an email or an app. So basically, I think the top two new examples here, barcodes and QR codes, whether those are on a physical card or on a virtual card, both. We haven't spoken about biometric passes or anything like that. And I don't think those have been raised by either of the operators in the MCR project, at least so far. So in terms of types of passes, that's currently what's being discussed and being implemented with Legend in MCR. I can obviously talk a little bit more about access passes in general, but that sounds like the scope of this slide, at least.
Well, of this slide, but I think it would be useful to expand it, if you don't mind.
Okay. Yes. Where to begin? So I guess maybe just talking about some user journeys might be the easiest way through. So and I know Nick has some good technical knowledge of the MCR project, so he can chime in if I miss anything or get anything incorrect. The idea here is in MCR is that you join the MCR Active as as an MCR Active user. You then link accounts. I might be using the wrong terminology for the spec, so again, Nick, please jump in. But you put your email in to MCR Active, and it can check if you have an existing account with that email address on the booking systems that are in scope, that are connected. And then you can connect your accounts. And the idea is that the access pass is synchronized, is the same between MCR Active and the one on the seller side, on the provider side, and that when there are changes in access paths, that's also synchronized, so that if there's a change in access paths because someone's collected a new physical card and that's scanned in at the leisure center, then that is stored on the naturally that's stored on the that user's account in the for that operator, but that also kind of passes back up to Active, and that changes the barcode that's shown in the Active website and the associated app.
Mhm.
So there's a synchronization there. I can pause there in case there's any questions or if I've missed anything.
Sorry, this is Andy from Gladstone. I think there's a quite question there. Nick, I'm under the impression, is it the MCR or Westminster, they pass through their card identifier?
Yeah, it's both. It's both. It's the directions two-way sync, because if you have a provisioned physical card that you've picked up in center, the way that gets attached to the account is by scanning it into the leisure management system at reception, and then that gets pushed up to MCR or Westminster and becomes the MCR Westminster kind of. It's not a leisure card that's getting provisioned there. It's the council utilizing their leisure services to provision a kind of the whole membership card for the area. So it's not like the Everyone Active card, if you like. It's the Westminster card that gets you into a library and all other places. That you're picking up a new one off the deck of cards that you've got behind the front desk, and then you're putting that into Gladstone, and then Gladstone's pushing that up to Westminster or MCR, and then that gives you access to everything.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
Okay, so that's one user journey down. What are the others?
Well, to do with access passes, I guess it's in using that pass. So when I make a booking on Active or Westminster, then I'm able to use a pass that's connected to my account, so that when I turn up into the center, that I can scan that card and be allowed in. So that I think is different for guest bookings compared to other types of bookings.
Mm-hmm.
Either which way user journey is, I have something on my phone, Active website or email, whatever, which is the pass I use for the booking that I've made. And if I, so this walk-in journey we just talked about, so if I then turn up to the center, I'm able to be recognized by that barcode and tell them what I want to do, assuming their space, and be booked on. And I guess the other type of access is I don't have my barcode or my phone or anything with me. So I'm able to just say who I am at the desk, and they should be able to try and look me up as they would normally for current circumstances without MCR Westminster. But my account exists and I can be found and looked up, so that I can then book and pay at the desk for whatever it is that I want to join that day.
Okay, so that actually feels fairly straightforward. I mean, in terms of the types, we do have swipe cards, we've got barcodes, we've got QR codes. Biometrics are out of scope for the MCR Active and Active Westminster projects anyway. And then there's the notion that somebody could come in without an identification pass and be just admitted through the turnstiles, or is it that there's some kind of rendering of an access code that then gets you through the turnstiles?
They need to purchase something through the reception desk that would then generate a barcode.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Or if they were a member, they hadn't booked online, their card would be charged with that activity as well, so they could use that at the turnstile.
Okay. Right.
Worst case, that they've generally got buttons to override the rules from a turnstile perspective and just open them, as long as the receptionist has checked that person's booked in and who they say they are and they paid for it, then they can just manually override the turnstiles.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. Um,
I need to go now, guys. Sorry,
Okay.
apologies.
Thanks very much, Debbie.
See you later, Debbie.
Cheers, bye.
Okay, I mean, I think we're pretty close to bottoming this out. Famous last words, but I suppose the question that this leaves me with from a more standard setting perspective, just abstracting a bit from MCR Active and Active Westminster, is how does this change if we move to a biometric system? I don't know if it changes that much, actually.
I don't think it does, Tim, because at the end of the day, the biometrics will be identifying an actual individual. So all being well, they'd be on a system, and it would then verify that they are here and they have a booking booked, or they can make a booking, and then that would activate them through the turnstile.
Yes, agreed. I think it may be in a biometrics only world, then some of the Westminster, Manchester use cases wouldn't work. I mean, for example, if you were to say walk into the leisure centre and they said scan your face, well, sorry, what am I saying? The biometrics wouldn't work in the library, basically, whereas the barcode might, without some other magic happening. So it sounds like there's a kind of how interoperable a barcode is versus biometrics is different. But I completely agree with Andy. If someone adds biometrics to their account as an additional thing rather than, you know, on top of whatever they've got, yeah, we'll just let them in because they're recognized as an account. So, but that's almost out of scope because it has nothing to do with our specification that we're talking about here, that's the case. That's just because they happen to have an account within the system that they're allowed in.
But I mean, would it be the case that some scheme like MCR Active would have a biometric component? So your biometric details are stored in some way in the broker application, and that is then used to gain admittance to the facility.
Yeah, so one way of, yeah, so I guess booking system managed biometrics is something we support without any changes. Broker managed biometrics sounds like a horrendous can of worms that I don't even know where we would begin, because you've got to have compatible biometric systems that all share the same and personal data sharing. And
I'm not sure biometrics would work with the guest capability either if they're not recorded on the booking system either.
Yes, who knows?
Okay, so this is
it wouldn't.
Yeah. Well, I don't mean that, but the thing is, that is a very hypothetical situation, because I don't know if any brokers are talking about implementing biometrics. That sounds, well, I don't know, unless Playfinder's got it on the roadmap for next year.
We do not.
I think you find the technologies out there. There's a lot of leisure operators looking at it. It's just the sheer expense of it, and it's just a turn off at the moment.
Yeah, I raised it because I was actually surprised by how far Stephen indicated they'd explored that, and it did sound like, you know, foreseeably, if the price were lower, then the security advantages would make it worth it.
I mean, it's a capability that we've got. We've utilised as well as Gladstone, but it literally is the case of whether the clients can actually afford it, and that's the challenge that we face at the moment. It's the solution. It's the partners we're using, the price they're charging.
Okay, well, so I think this is something we should revisit in probably 2 years' time. Then the biometrics question. But yeah, I think that's given us what we need to actually proceed with the membership proposal. Then, just in terms of what sorts of access passes we're actually talking about here within this particular proposal. So, an uncharacteristically complete call. I'll just ask if anyone has any other business they would like to raise. Oh, this is a curious. There we go. I'll try that again. Any other business anybody would like to raise?
Nothing for me.
Just one just in case it's helpful for us in the next call in terms of the semantics of this. Are we calling everything barcode swipe cards and QR codes? I guess all of those technologies include basically just encoding a number in a different way. through a different medium.
Mm.
And so the mechanisms we're talking about from the API perspective are the same, past that number, up and down, wherever it goes. At the moment in the proposal, the type of that, the kind of technical name for that is a barcode. I know the barcode is in schema.org is defined as including barcodes and QR codes, kind of 2D barcodes and QR codes. So I'm just wondering if we think that keeping use of that same schema term barcode and extending that slightly to include swipe cards, the code that's on a swipe card, is appropriate, or whether, does it even need to be extended? Does it matter, basically? Is it enough?
I think we do need to be quite specific on that, because for our types of customers at the moment, they will have a mixture. So I would probably go as far as to say 85% of our customers use barcode for their recognition, either on a card or a key fob, or a different device. We've got a small amount that use magnetic stripe. So again, it's just using that reference that's encoded within that. And then the rest are typically MyFair smart cards. Now, smart cards is where you get slightly more complex, because typically we read the serial number off the card, but there are sectors on those cards as well, which some local authorities use to embed additional information.
Yeah. There's also the other form of, not so much card, but barcode reference we use. We didn't discuss in the previous meeting whether it would be an identifier against an individual or a code, i.e. a booking reference, that we use against specific bookings as well. Again, that can be used to gain access to a turnstile. That latter one, with regards to booking reference, that could be something that's generated via an email, onto a screen, however they want to transpose it to their users.
So that's a different type of barcode there, you're saying, Andy, at the end there?
It's a barcode. At the end of the day, it's just a different encoding of what it actually contains in the barcode.
Yeah. So sorry, the types were barcode, swipe card. So barcode, two types, swipe card. And swipe cards could be many, as Andrew was saying there. It could be MyFair, it could be magnetic stripe, it could be a barcode.
So it sounds like barcode is used to refer to something specifically. So referring to, say, QR codes and swipe cards as barcodes would be potentially misleading then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's helpful. And so are we saying that sorry, what was the MyFair? Is MyFair a brand?
It's a type of proximity card. So again, there's no physical stripe or barcode printed on it. It's just
it's a chip in the card, a chip in the card, or a chip in a device, or something. Yeah.
Right, I see. So
and customers tend to use those because they can embed them in wristbands. So if you imagine the journey, as I walk through, I tap it on the turnstile, I go through, I tap that same device then on the locker.
Yeah.
I don't need to take it off. I can go swimming, I can go in the gym. So that whole kind of seamless approach, that's where they work really well.
Oh, I see. So it's less likely that we'll have a MyFair card embedded in a kind of a resident discount card or any type of broker.
You say that, but a lot of councils did invest in that as kind of smart city projects many years ago. So there are a few that are still remaining.
Right. So we need to capture those three. Sorry, Tim, you were probably going to say the same thing.
Oh no, yeah, we need to capture that, and I was just confirming that the fare card, so it's still essentially a number that's being transmitted. It's just a slightly different format.
Yeah, it's just though the difference on that, Tim, is that you can use a serial number off of that, which typically is what we use, but they do have sectors where people write data. So again, historically, that might be used where I put my name and address into one of those sectors, and then a different system can then pull that information from that card.
Ooh. Okay.
And again, that is generally sort of dual use within a local authority. Library might be one sector. The buses, for what you might use as to get around the city and that sort of thing, may use a different sector.
Oh, fine. So but in that case, presumably the provision of this card, however it gets given to the user, they've encoded all that stuff in it. So you're just using it as a
Yeah, the ledger operator would know that their readers they're using, correct me if I'm wrong here, Andrew, would know to read sector 2, let's say as an example, or sector 1.
They should do, yeah.
Yep. It's just a wider conversation that these sort of type of cards can have multiple sectors and could be read, or if you had the encryption, let's put it that way. But it's multi-use in a local authority.
Would you? I remember someone banding around an example where these cards are in use heavily in a local authority and using the Gladstone system for the city. Does anyone know? I'm just wondering whether we should invite somebody from that context onto this call for the next call, just in case there's any wisdom that they might have on this. Begins with a B, maybe.
I think Brent used to, but I can't tell you whether he does now. That to be honest, it was just one of those things that I think there was great dreams of what the potential was, and it worked in some instances. I think Southampton was the first smart city, but Caerphilly, I think, still use it in Wales. But it's as I say, it's not a huge amount, but I think to me it's more important that we use the right terminology so we don't get misunderstanding of what equipment's needed. Because my other fear is as well that we're talking there about somebody coming in with a device which needs to be scanned. Again, slightly off topic on this, but typically our sites will have a swipe card reader, which means you pull the card through that reader for it to read either the barcode or the magnetic stripe. Now, obviously, if I've got a mobile phone, I'm not going to want someone pulling that through a reader because it won't fit. But it's another consideration that they may have to invest in additional readers to be plugged in.
Yes. So just to be clear on the previous point there, Andrew, are we suggesting that probably MyFair cards and smart cities, although it was a great idea, that dream wasn't really realized, so maybe we don't need to worry about it in the scope of this spec at this point in time?
I don't think we need to worry about it. I think as long as we define what it is that that can be used with this service, I think that's more important.
Yeah, so it's what it is and what it isn't, rather than
correct. Yeah, the needing to support it.
Sure. So maybe it's swipe cards and barcodes then, potentially.
Presumably there's relatively little need for interoperability between implementations. Like no one's saying that I can take my card or whatever from Nottingham and get into a gym in Manchester with this. So as long as like the system can, if people do stuff that's out of spec with it, that's fine within a local context. Is that true?
I think that sounds right.
Yeah.
I think that makes from a standards point of view, I think like that makes it a bit easier, because standards only ever cover the area or of a domain where interoperability is required. And if you've got this matters for OpenActive as a whole matters because you want services who never met and have run in very different places to be able to talk to each other and exchange information. But that only matters at a more national level for this, whereas in a local implementation. And I think we're seeing from the fact that Interoperability in Westminster exists as projects with the time and attention and budgets that they've got, that a certain amount of local development on top of it is expected and fine. But we don't have to accommodate absolutely every eventuality. But I think as you've been saying, scoping it down to this is what is accommodated here, and it not being an exclusive thing is good.
So just back to the naming issue. So what is the superclass for barcodes and swipe cards? Is just access passes? Is that fine?
We tend to use access token, and then we list them below which tokens are supported.
Right. Yeah.
So I'd say, if access pass works, without getting into another whole naming thing, the reason I'd say access tokens might be confusing is because we're using OpenID Connect, and access token means something very specific in an OpenID Connect context around authentication. So it might be good to have, if we were to use access pass here when we talk about physical tokens that you use to take into a space, versus the access token, which is actually OpenID refers to that as the JWT token. Yeah.
Thank you, Nathan. Nathan is hopping off the call. I tend to hopefully we've got 6 minutes. Hopefully we can resolve this fairly easily. I think I would probably vote with Nick to say that access pass is just slightly more generic, and it avoids some of the more authorization connotations of access tokens. So if we could go with access pass, as long as we're clear that what we really mean by that is just barcodes, QR codes, and swipe cards, I think that might be useful for the purposes of the documentation communication anyway. Are there any strong objections to access pass as the generic term for these kinds of access mechanism?
Nope.
Okay, great. I'll take any remaining silence as assent, and cross that off the list, and give everybody 5 minutes.
Wait. One more, sorry, one more quick. So I just wanted to say this on this call, because obviously this is the main W3C call about a use case that hasn't been represented. I think we should add it if everyone thinks it's a good idea to add. I think all the mechanisms we're talking about for MCR and for Westminster also apply to universities. So if you've got a university card that you're being given as a student, that student card get you access to the library, can get you access to the local facilities in exactly the same way as a local council card could do. And that also solves a problem for universities that are interested in participating in OpenActive, who currently don't have a way of saying this is a student-only opportunity, or this is a special student price for the opportunity, because we don't have that kind of idea baked in. So we could just repurpose everything we're talking about, but I don't think any additional effort or really even necessarily thought, because it's all the same. So I just thought I'd raise that as an extra use case for people's consideration.
So again, there, Nick, though, they'd have a form of identifier in the form of an access pass.
Yeah, they've got a university card. Yeah.
So that, again, depending on the university, that again could be a barcode. It could be MyFair, or not MyFair, but a smart chip.
They are typically MyFair, I think, Andy.
Yeah, I think they are. Yeah. So it falls in scope, I think, with what we're saying as well. It's just a different audience, isn't it? Really.
Yep.
Yeah, I guess renewal of membership might have different rules attached to it, but I don't think that materially affects anything in the spec.
That's right, exactly. It's you're doing another year of university rather than renewing an annual subscription to paid membership, or renewing an annual residential discount or whatever.
Yeah, and you'll have gaps, I suppose, but again, that's just a question of whether you're a member or not at a given time. So
right, expiry. Yeah.
But again, what's the user case they'd be using it for, Nick? If you have a university involved, what's the user case they'd be using this integration?
Well, let's assume the university wanted to make sure that their students had access to a number of different things, including their leisure centres with that card. That's something that this could facilitate.
So they'd have a membership like any other sort of leisure industry environment as well, then.
Yeah, well, exactly. And let's say they wanted to, pull in they might, from an open data perspective, want to show their students local opportunities which are available outside of just the leisure operator which they work with, but also wider. So they could use the open data. They could also use this as a way of getting access to discounts for students.
And come to think of it, you get those multi-campus universities, and I'm aware of at least one that has actually got different operators for different leisure facilities. So yeah, it is quite analogous to the city kind of level organization.
Oh, that's true. In fact, in London universities, you've probably got universities that might have agreements with local operators, and there's a crossover between both. Yeah.
Okay. Ooh, whole new use case catered for. Yeah, might bear some further investigation, but yeah, nothing seems that dissimilar from casual reflection, definitely.
Great, yay! Let's add it to the doc.
Yep. Action universities. Okay, great. Okay, thank you very much, all, and see some of you tomorrow. I'll be getting an agenda out shortly for tomorrow's technical working group call, and if I don't see you there, see you in a couple of weeks.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone.
I can see you later.
Thank you.